Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's video, I'm here to talk about the newly released trailer of F4 Thailand. It's the Thai adaptation of Kamiyoyoko's Hana Yori Dango. And if you've been watching my videos for a while, then you would know that I've made several videos about the Hana Yori Dango franchise. I've talked about the other adaptations. I've seen all of its adaptations. Besides the Meteor Garden 2018 one, which I've seen a couple of episodes, didn't really finish that one for reasons that I'll be talking more about later in this video. But the thing is, like, I acknowledge how iconic the Hana Yori Dango franchise and narrative is. It's definitely like a personal favorite of mine as well. Whenever I'm thinking of something to rewatch, then usually it's at the top of my list. However, I honestly feel like despite my love for this iconic franchise slash series, it's also a narrative that's better left in the early 2000s up until the 2010s. Remaking it way past that time frame is kind of like confusing to me, because I feel like the whole like massive red flag walking as your main male lead, even if he changes in the middle of the story because of the main female lead, it's still kind of like weird to think about that in this day and age. I don't know. I absolutely love the Japanese version because they gave Domyouji some sort of like a redemption arc for him to be able to like look into his past actions. But then at the same time, like, there's just, I mean, if you love these series and you've seen these dramas as well, then you would know that there's definitely a problematic side to it as well. That's why when the Meteor Garden 2018 version came out, wasn't that big of a fan of that. They did some tweaks in terms of the narrative, but it just wasn't for me. And it was good that at the time, and again, probably just my bias talking, but I know that some of the people who also love Hana Yori Dango feel the same way, is that when Japan did Hana Nochi Hare as well, which serves as a sequel to Hana Yori Dango, they talked about Domyouji's problematic past. They sort of like addressed that what he's done in his past wasn't exactly like something to be glorified, and without it being too preachy. And then at the same time, like, the dynamic of Kaguragi Haruto and Edogawa Oto was definitely something that's also fun to watch. Like, they developed from these mini rivals, but they weren't as toxic in terms of bantering as compared to Domyouji and Makino. So for me, I love the take in terms of how Hana Nochi Hare was done. And in a way also, it preserved the idea of this core group being the protector of a certain school, and it had that certain like still cruelty to it, but it wasn't as heavy and as disturbing as how it was in terms of like the Eternal Boys Over Flowers, Meteor Garden, Hana Yori Dango narrative. So that's why for me, if you're to look into like remakes or rehashes given this narrative, my huge bias would definitely be on Hana Nochi Hare. Fast forward to, again, the topic of today's video. I also understand that if another country is doing this for the first time, it's kind of impossible to do a take similar to Hana Nochi Hare, because obviously there's also that idea of continuing a story, blah blah blah. So I also kind of understand, but then again, like, when I first heard of this, to be honest, I was like, really, in 2021? So how are they going to reshape this story? I don't know. But I guess if people are still anticipating this kind of narrative, like want to see like a fresher take on it, honestly, I do feel like I am going to watch it and check it out, because I don't know, it's just been tradition for me to just watch all the adaptations just so I could compare them as well. But yeah, so with that said, so let's move on to the cast. Now, I know that there's also been mixed reactions from the netizens about like when the casting was first announced, because two of the stars of this film, Bright and Win, are really huge when it came to like the BL genre. I've seen a couple of episodes of their series together. I didn't finish that one, not because of any other reason, I just didn't finish it. But yeah, I kind of like understand, and I was just kind of glad to find out that for this drama they weren't playing the roles of the rivals like Domyouji and Hanazawa Rui. So I think that's definitely a lot better and a lot more easier to consume for people who are fans of them from the BL genre. But other than that, so they're joined by the other cast. So there's Tontawan, Tantivejakul as Goria, which is the Tsukushi Makino of the story. Then there's again Bright as Thyme, who plays Domyouji Tsukasa. There's Jirawat Tsutivani. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering these names. I'm trying my hardest, but he's playing Ren, who is the Hanazawa Rui in this story. And then there's Win, who's Kavin, who plays the Nishikado Sojiro. And lastly, there's Hirun Kit Changkam, who is MJ, which is Mimasaka Akira. Now, it's also quite interesting because I just found out when I first watched the trailer, so I've already seen the trailer, that Cindy Bishop is playing Thyme's mom, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, now with that, now I also think that there's a lot of like, I don't know, like this almost didn't happen because some viewers had concerns about how the bullying was going to be portrayed on screen, but then it still pushed through. So yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to the trailer breakdown. This intro took longer than I expected. But yeah, so okay, let's go. You know, it's kind of amusing to me how, but it's kind of interesting because from what I've seen in the trailer that they released over a year ago, the entire premise of this thing was to make it modern, was in terms of like it being cyberbullying. So like some people were trying to take videos of what's going on and then they were trying to post it online, but then because of the power of the F4, the videos get taken down immediately, so there's no evidence of what's happening. And then now, from what I derive from this entire thing, it's not happening in school, or maybe that's just I mean, for things like this of this scale, it's not happening in school, which I feel like makes a lot more sense than it happening in campus. So that's one thing, though I'm still not sure. So yeah, so in this narrative, it's a little bit more low key, but the red card that F4 issues is still there. So yeah, I guess, yeah, that definitely fits a lot more, I guess. Oh. So from that scene, I guess it's kind of interesting that they don't exactly own the school, and there are a lot of people who are also against the idea. So maybe that's in relation to like the first trailer where there are people who are trying to take videos of the violence that F4 was kind of like pushing and egging people to do. And I think that dynamic is really good in terms of how they're trying to present this story in 2021. Because back then, like for all the other stories in the early 2000s, like the other adaptations, everyone was on board with whatever F4 was doing, and it seems like only the character of Maki no Tsukushi was the one who saw through whatever it is that's happening. So it's kind of like good that this was the thing that they're trying to like do for this version. I'm laughing so hard at the logo mania that's happening in this drama. Like, I'm not sure if the intention was to really show that they're showing branded clothes, but I don't know. It's just like, it's really on the nose. It's amusing that way. I really like the girl. She's really pretty. I like her. I think this particular scene is the scene where they get stranded, though I'm not sure what's happening here that led them to this situation. I'm kind of interested because it's very different from the fire exit one from Meteor Garden, and then obviously like for the other versions, like for Voice Over Flowers, the Korean one, if I remember correctly, it's in the, what's that? Like I think it's a Ferris wheel thing. I don't know. And then obviously for Hana Yori Dango, there's the elevator. So yeah, it's kind of nice. Like they're putting this scene, but it's kind of like different. The whole dynamic of that. So if there's one thing that I absolutely find funny in terms of like the other versions of like most of the versions, like the Korean one, the Japanese one, and yeah, and then for this one, it's definitely, or even for Hana Nochi Hare, it's the tendency of the male character to buy something just because. And I like that, insert a little bit of humor in this one as well. And then of course there's the second lead. Is he sketching while he's in a party? It's the sister, of course. It's kind of like interesting how the supporting characters for this one goes beyond just the F4 and their circle, but actually Gorya's own support system. I feel like that's definitely one thing that I like being explored in this story as well. It would make it seem a lot more grounded despite the largeness of the story and how some parts of it will be exaggerated. But at the same time, like here, she's getting advice from people, sound advice from people within her own circle, and how, you know, making it seem like it's impossible for her to be in a relationship or trying to change someone of that caliber. Yeah. It's kind of interesting how the second lead in this one doesn't seem as broody as, like, he has a light feel to him. Like, you know, it's not like he's always gonna cry all the time. Kind of like interesting to me because all of the Hanazawa Rui characters usually have that same vibe. So it's kind of like nice. It gives me more of a Hasetenma kind of vibe in Hana Nochi Hare, where it's just this very like light character who's just nice and all. Okay, cool. Now I've seen that, but I haven't really like dissected it as much. I mean, I've seen it in passing, but I haven't really dissected it as I'm doing right now, watching this, like doing it now on video. It really interested me as to where they're taking the story, despite the fact that this has been an exhausted story over and over again, simply because of the factor that not everyone is on board with this whole like F4 bullying thing, if you know what I mean. Like, that arc for me is probably the one that's compelling me to watch this, is because I also want to know, like, why is everybody, like, there are people who are openly against it. What are the F4 actually doing to those people? Because we never really see them in action, unlike the other versions where the F4 are very hands-on when it comes to like fist fighting those who are against them and stuff like that, and they're really leading the hunt for people who are going against them. Here, they're more of like egging people on and looking at this in a way that, you know, it's for our entertainment, and that's why you have to do this. So I'm definitely interested in that particular dynamic alone. I feel like how that is, and how Thyme's character specifically would be portrayed in this one, would really change how this entire series would go, especially given the comments that I mentioned earlier when it comes to the whole like dynamic of who Domyouji Tsukasa was and what's a massive red flag when it comes to his character. So I think that alone, like that characterization, that detail, is really something that what I'm looking forward to seeing. Other than that, they still stuck with like very familiar scenes from past adaptations, but I feel like they're going to do their own twist on it. I like the whole like support system thing, where it's not just a friend or someone who's Gorya's own age who's trying to give her advice, like sound advice on how she's going to take on this matter, but people who are older than her and probably have more wisdom or can see this situation a lot more clearly, other than, you know, teenagers falling in love. So I like that entire dynamic. It's not, and when I saw the initial trailer for this, I think it was released exactly a year ago when they released this one. I was kind of curious because I just thought that the main premise of that is just gonna revolve around cyberbullying, thus making it modern. But now that I've seen this trailer, I think it's shaping up to be a little bit more pleasing than my initial expectation. And it's gonna air December 18. So definitely looking forward to that. And I'll probably create a video reacting to it and reviewing this. It will depend if I will do it per episode or as a whole. So yeah. So with that said, thank you so much. Like, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you looking forward to it? Which adaptation is your favorite from the past ones? And what are your expectations for this one? So definitely want to hear about that in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be seeing you again soon in a new video.